But as time went on, he began to notice something troubling. Gloria seemed to always ask for money, whether it was for the family or to support her siblings' education. There was always a reason for Gloria to need money. Stephen tried to suggest that Gloria find a job or learn a skill so she could support herself, but she always brushed off his suggestions. "I don't have the strength to work," she would say. In the town of Oka, there lived a man named Stephen. He was a kind man, always ready to help others. But despite his good heart, Stephen had a sadness within him. He was in his late 30s and still single. Stephen ran his own business and he was doing well for himself. But when it came to love, things didn't seem to work out. He had been hurt many times by women who seemed to be only interested in his money. One day, Stephen's ex-girlfriend told him hurtful words. She said he wasn't her type of man, that he was erotic and local. Those words cut deep, leaving Stephen feeling sad and unworthy. After that painful breakup, Stephen made a decision. He decided he wouldn't help any woman anymore. He stopped having girlfriends altogether. His family noticed his sadness and worried that something might be wrong with him. One day, Stephen's family called for a meeting at their family house. They were concerned about his single status and wanted to know why he wasn't getting married. His parents were especially worried. "Why don't you want to get married, Stephen?" his mother asked with a concerned tone. Stephen sighed, feeling the weight of their expectations. "I will get married soon, don't worry," he assured them, though deep down, he wasn't sure if that would ever happen. His family accepted his answer but continued to pray for him to find a good wife. Stephen left the family meeting feeling even more uncertain about his future. As he walked home, Stephen thought about his past relationships. He didn't want to be hurt again by someone who was only interested in his money. But at the same time, he longed for companionship and love. That night, Stephen prayed to God for guidance. He asked for help in finding a woman who would love him for who he was, not for his wealth. The next day, Stephen went about his usual routine, running his business and helping his customers. But deep down, he couldn't shake off the feeling of loneliness. As the days passed, Stephen's resolve to stay single wavered. He missed having someone to share his life with, someone to laugh with, and someone to lean on during tough times. But he was afraid of getting hurt again. He didn't know how to trust someone with his heart after so many painful experiences. Despite his fears, Stephen couldn't ignore the longing in his heart for love and companionship. He knew he had to take a chance, even if it meant risking getting hurt again. Stephen continued to work hard at his business, hoping to distract himself from the loneliness that lingered in his heart. One day, he returned home from work to find a surprise waiting for him. His sister Grace had come to visit, and she brought along her friend Gloria. Stephen was taken aback by their sudden arrival, as Grace hadn't mentioned anything about it beforehand. But he welcomed them warmly in his home. "Sorry for not telling you before coming," Grace apologized sheepishly. "Mom wanted me to check up on you." Stephen nodded, understanding the reason behind their visit. He couldn't help but wonder if his family was trying to set him up with Gloria. However, he decided not to dwell on it and focused on being a gracious host instead. As the days passed, Stephen noticed Gloria's kindness and helpfulness around the house. She woke up early to clean, cook, and do the laundry, despite Stephen insisting that he had a domestic worker for those tasks. "Don't worry about it," Gloria would say with a smile whenever Stephen protested. "I'm happy to help." One morning, Gloria prepared breakfast for Stephen before he headed off to work, but he declined her offer, claiming he wasn't hungry. Stephen's refusal to eat the food Gloria had prepared saddened her, but she didn't let it dampen her spirit. When Grace noticed Gloria's disappointment, she reassured her friend, "Don't worry, Stephen will come around soon. Just keep being yourself." Despite Grace's encouragement, Stephen remained distant towards Gloria. He couldn't bring himself to show any interest in her, fearing he would only end up being hurting again. As the days went by, Stephen's reluctance to engage with Gloria became more apparent. He avoided spending time with her and seemed indifferent to her presence in his home. Feeling dejected, Gloria confided in Grace about her feelings. "I don't think your brother likes me," she admitted tearfully. Grace comforted her friend, promising that everything would work out in the end. But despite her reassurances, Gloria couldn't shake off the feeling of rejection. Eventually, after over a week of staying at Stephen's house, Gloria decided it was time to leave. She couldn't bear the pain of being ignored any longer. On the night before their departure, Grace attempted to talk to Stephen about Gloria, but he brushed off her concerns, insisting that he wasn't ready for any relationship. The next day, Grace and Gloria bid farewell to Stephen, leaving him alone once again. Stephen felt a pang of regret as he watched them leave, but he convinced himself that it was for the best. However, his parents' concerned phone call later that day made him question his decision. They asked if he had a problem or if he simply wasn't interested in women, prompting Stephen to reflect on his actions. Feeling remorseful, Stephen promised his parents that he would make it up to them soon. Little did he know that his journey to find love was far from over, and the lessons he would learn along the way would change him in ways he never imagined. After some days of contemplation, Stephen mustered the courage to reach out to his sister Grace. He asked her for Gloria's number, and with a heavy heart, he dialed her number. "Hello." Gloria's voice sounded surprised yet hopeful. Stephen took a deep breath before speaking. "Hi Gloria, it's Stephen. I wanted to apologize for my behavior when you were here. I realize now that I wasn't fair to you, and I would like to make it up to you. Would you be willing to meet me for dinner?" Gloria's heart skipped a beat with joy at Stephen's unexpected call and apology. Of course, Stephen, I would love to meet you for dinner. They agreed on a date and time, and soon Stephen found himself sitting across from Gloria at a beautiful restaurant in town. As they talked and laughed, Stephen felt a glimmer of hope in his heart. Maybe, just maybe, Gloria was different from the other women he had known. Their dates went well, and soon they began seeing each other more often. Stephen found himself drawn to Gloria's warmth and kindness. Before long, Gloria moved into Stephen's house, and they officially became a couple. At first, Stephen was happy to have Gloria by his side. He enjoyed her company and the love she showered on him. But as time went on, he began to notice something troubling. Gloria seemed to always ask for money, whether it was for the family or to support her siblings' education. There was always a reason for Gloria to need money. Stephen tried to suggest that Gloria find a job or learn a skill so she could support herself, but she always brushed off his suggestions. I don't have the strength to work, she would say, her voice tinged with exhaustion. Stephen didn't think much of it at first. After all, he had enough money to provide for both of them comfortably. But as the requests for money became more frequent, Stephen couldn't help but feel uneasy. Despite his concerns, Stephen and Gloria eventually tied the knot in a beautiful wedding ceremony. The joy of their union was overshadowed by Stephen's growing apprehension about Gloria's constant demands for money. As time went on, Gloria's requests for money only seemed to increase. She would often nag and argue with Stephen whenever he refused to give her what she asked for. Stephen felt torn between his love for Gloria and his desire to be financially responsible. He prayed for guidance, unsure of what to do next. As time passed, the tension between Stephen and Gloria in their home grew thicker. Stephen found himself staying out late just to avoid Gloria's constant nagging and demand for money. Their once happy relationship had turned into a battlefield of argument and resentment. One fateful day, while Gloria was at home, Stephen was involved in a ghastly motor accident. The news shook Gloria to her core, and she received a call instructing her to rush to the hospital. Without a moment's hesitation, she hurried to Stephen's side. When Gloria arrived at the hospital, she saw Stephen lying in the emergency room. His face contorted in pain. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she prayed fervently for his quick recovery. Stephen's parents and siblings were also summoned, and they all rushed to his bedside, united in their concern for him. Throughout Stephen's stay at the hospital, Gloria put on a facade of being a caring and devoted wife. She stayed by his side, comforting him and attending to his needs. Her actions impressed Stephen's family, who praised her for her dedication to her husband. However, when Stephen finally regained consciousness, they received devastating news. The accident had left him blind, and the doctors said there was nothing they could do to reverse it. The revelation shattered Gloria's facade of concern, and she couldn't hide her distress at the thought of being married to a blind man. Despite her inner turmoil, Gloria maintained a composed exterior in front of Stephen's family. She assured them that she would take good care of Stephen and do everything in her power to support him. After Stephen was discharged from the hospital, his family returned to their own home, leaving Gloria to care for her husband. Along with Stephen, Gloria struggled to contain the bitterness and resentment building up inside her. Stephen, grateful for Gloria's presence during his time of need, thanked her for her unwavering support. But Gloria's reaction was unexpected. She lashed out at Stephen, hurling insults and accusing him of being a burden. "You are nothing but a liability," she spat, her words dripping with venom. "Be careful where you tread, Stephen, and stay out of my way." Stephen was taken aback by Gloria's sudden outburst. He apologized for inconveniencing her and professed his love for her, hoping to soothe her anger. But Gloria's response was chilling. "Love?" she scoffed. "Go to hell with your love." With that, she pushed him away and stormed out of the room, leaving Stephen alone with his shattered heart and the painful realization that Gloria had never truly loved him. As Stephen grappled with the betrayal of his wife's true intentions, he knew that his journey to find genuine love had taken a devastating turn. In the days that followed the heartbreaking revelation of Gloria's true intention, Stephen found himself trapped in a living nightmare. Gloria's attitude towards him turned colder and more cruel with each passing day. She no longer showed any semblance of care or compassion for her husband. Gloria's mistreatment of Stephen reached unbearable levels. She would often withhold food from him, leaving him hungry and weak. Stephen, unable to fend for himself, would sometimes collapse from exhaustion and hunger, tears of despair streaming down his face. Despite his suffering, Stephen obeyed Gloria's every command, desperate to avoid her wrath. When she demanded money, he would hand her his checkbook, allowing her to fill in the amount she desired before directing him where to sign. But Gloria's greed knew no bounds. Sometimes, she would leave the house for days at a time, extorting large sums of money from Stephen before disappearing without a trace. Left alone and vulnerable, Stephen would cry out for help, but there was no one there to console him. One day, in a moment of desperation, Stephen pleaded with Gloria to hire a maid to assist him around the house. After much reluctance, Gloria agreed and reached out to an agency for help. When the maid arrived, she introduced herself as Florence, a humble young woman in her 20s. Gloria informed Florence of Stephen's condition and explained that she would be responsible for taking care of him while she was away. Florence accepted the task eagerly, expressing gratitude for the opportunity. From the moment Florence stepped into Stephen's life, everything changed for the better. She took on the role of a caregiver with grace and kindness, attending to Stephen's every need with unwavering dedication. Florence cooked nutritious meals for Stephen, washed his clothes, and tidied up the house with care. She read him stories and newspapers, providing him with companionship and intellectual stimulation. Most importantly, she treated him with the respect and compassion he deserved. While Gloria continued to prioritize her own desires and indulgences, Florence remained steadfast in her commitment to Stephen's well-being. She became his confidant, a source of comfort and support in his darkest hours. Despite his blindness, Stephen could sense the stark contrast between Gloria's selfishness and Florence's selflessness. He felt a glimmer of hope stirring within him, grateful for the presence of such a kind and caring companion. As Stephen's bond with Florence deepened, he began to realize that true love wasn't always found where one expected it. Sometimes it appeared in the most unexpected of places, shining brightly like a beacon of hope in the darkest of times. One day, as Stephen sat with Florence in the comfort of their home, he couldn't help but feel a sense of curiosity about her background. He gently breached the subject, asking Florence about her life before becoming a maid. Florence hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to respond. But when she opened up to Stephen, revealing that she was a university graduate who had struggled to find employment, instead of giving up, she had chosen to work as a maid, determined to make the best of her situation. Stephen listened intently to Florence's story, impressed by her resilience and determination. He applauded her for her strength and encouraged her to keep pursuing her dreams, no matter the obstacles she faced. When Florence expressed concern about Gloria's mistreatment of him, Stephen waved it off with a dismissive smile. "Don't worry about that, Florence. It's not your concern." He reassured her, not wanting to burden her with his troubles. Florence nodded understandably, apologizing for intruding on his personal affairs. She vowed to focus on her duties as his caretaker and put aside any concerns about Gloria's behavior. However, things took a dramatic turn when Gloria introduced a man named Silas as her cousin and announced that he would be staying with them for a while. Stephen welcomed Silas warmly, urging him to make himself at home. Unknown to Stephen, Silas was not Gloria's cousin, but her secret boyfriend. Gloria had orchestrated his arrival as part of her deceitful plan to continue her affair right under Stephen's nose. Silas was given a room in the visitors' quarters, but he spent most of his time upstairs in Stephen and Gloria's matrimonial room, with Stephen hurting downstairs and Florence assisting him. Silas and Gloria had ample opportunity to indulge in their evil act. Their affair became increasingly brazen, with Silas and Gloria shamelessly kissing and making out in the presence of Stephen. One day, Florence accidentally stumbled upon them, her shock evident on her face as she hastily retreated from the scene. Gloria approached Florence later, her tone dripping with menace as she issued a chilling threat. "If you ever breathe a word of what you saw, you will lose your job," she warned, her eyes flashing with malice. Fearing for her livelihood, Florence promised to keep silent about the illicit affair, burying her own feelings of discomfort and disgust deep inside. Meanwhile, Stephen remained oblivious to the betrayal unfolding right under his nose. He continued to enjoy Florence's company, finding solace in her kindness and companionship. But one day, as Florence read to him, Stephen noticed a change in her demeanor. Her voice sounded strained, and there was a heaviness in her tone that hadn't been there before. Concerned, Stephen gently prodded Florence, asking her what was troubling her. Florence hesitated, her heart torn between loyalty to Stephen and the fear of reprisal from Gloria. "It's nothing, sir," she lied, forcing a smile onto her lips. "Just a passing worry. Please don't trouble yourself about it." But deep down, Florence knew that the secret she was keeping could have devastating consequences for everyone involved. And as the days passed, the weight of her silence grew heavier, threatening to crush her under its unbearable burden. As the days passed, Florence found herself burdened by the weight of the dark secret she was keeping. Despite her inner turmoil, she remained steadfast in her commitment to caring for Stephen, determined to shield him from the pain and betrayal that surrounded him. Meanwhile, Gloria and Silas hatched a sinister plan to seize control of Stephen's assets and flee with them. They searched the entire house, rifling through drawers and cabinets in search of valuable documents. But their efforts proved fruitless, and Gloria's frustration boiled over as she confronted Stephen about the missing papers. "What have you done with your documents, Stephen?" Gloria demanded, her voice laced with anger. "I need them for something important." Stephen, sensing Gloria's ulterior motive, hesitated before reluctantly revealing the whereabouts of the document. With a heavy heart, he directed her to a box in their bedroom wardrobe where he had stored them. Gloria's eyes lit up with triumph as she retrieved the document. Her greed and deceit laid there for all to see. With a triumphant smile, she declared to Stephen that she was done with their marriage and that she was leaving him. Desperate to salvage their relationship, Stephen pleaded with Gloria to stay, professing his love for her with tears in his eyes. But Gloria's heart was cold and unyielding, her words dripping with contempt as she belittled and insulted him. "I only married you for your money, Stephen." Gloria spat, her voice filled with venom. "And now that I have what I want, I have no reason to stay." Outside, Silas called impatiently for Gloria to hurry, eager to make their escape with Stephen's assets in tow. With a final glance of disdain, Gloria turned her back on Stephen and walked out the door, leaving him alone and heartbroken. As Stephen wept for the loss of the woman he had loved, Florence stood by his side, offering comfort and reassurance. She reminded him that he was not alone, that she would always be there for him no matter what. With Florence's unwavering support, Stephen found solace in the midst of his pain, and as he looked to the future with newfound hope, he knew that he would emerge from his betrayal stronger and wiser than before. As Florence prepared dinner in the kitchen, her mind raced with confusion and disbelief. She couldn't shake off the shock of seeing Stephen walking down the stairs unaided, his eyes fixed on her with a clarity she had never witnessed before. "Florence!" Stephen called out, his voice breaking through the silence of the room. Florence turned to face him, her eyes wide with astonishment. Sir, can you see me?" she stammered, struggling to comprehend the sudden turn of events. Stephen smiled warmly, nodding in confirmation. "Yes, Florence, I can see you." Overwhelmed by a flood of emotions, Florence approached Stephen cautiously, her heart pounding with disbelief. She took a seat beside him on the couch, her mind reeling with questions. How? How did this happen, sir? She asked, her voice trembling with uncertainty. Stephen took a deep breath, his gaze fixed on Florence with a mixture of sadness and resolve. I was never blind, Florence, he confessed, his voice tinged with regret. I orchestrated the entire charade to uncover the true intentions of those around me, especially Gloria. Florence listened in stunned silence as Stephen recounted the elaborate scheme he had devised with the help of a trusted doctor. Tears welled up in her eyes as she realized the depth of Stephen's pain and betrayal. I knew about Gloria's affairs with Silas and her threats towards you, Stephen continued, his voice filled with sorrow. But I needed to gather evidence to expose her deceit. Florence bowed her head in shame, her heart heavy with guilt. I'm so sorry, sir, she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. I should have told you the truth, but I was afraid of hurting you. Stephen reached out and gently touched Florence's hand, offering her a comforting smile. It's not your fault, Florence. You were only trying to protect me, he assured her, his eyes filled with gratitude. Florence felt a wave of relief wash over her as Stephen revealed that the documents Gloria had obtained were all fake and that his true assets were safely in the hands of his lawyer. Sir, you are truly a smart man, Florence exclaimed, her admiration for Stephen growing with each passing moment. Stephen smiled modestly, acknowledging Florence's praise. Thank you, Florence. But none of this would have been possible without your unwavering support and kindness during my supposed blindness. Florence blushed at the compliment, feeling grateful for the opportunity to assist Stephen during his time of need. It was my pleasure, sir. I'm just glad that everything turned out all right in the end. With the truth finally revealed, Florence and Stephen found solace in each other's company. Florence, relieved that Stephen was safe and sound, vowed to stand by his side no matter what challenges lay ahead. 2 days later, Gloria and Silas were caught in a heated argument about the fake document. Silas's anger boiled over, and he lashed out at Gloria, slapping her across the face and calling her names before storming away in a fit of rage. Alone and desperate, Gloria made the decision to return to Stephen, hoping to confront him about the deceit. But when she arrived at the house, she was met with an unexpected sight. To her astonishment, she saw Stephen and Florence sitting on the couch, laughing and chatting as if nothing had happened. Her heart sank as she realized the depth of her betrayal. Stephen, Gloria's voice trembled with uncertainty as she approached him. Can you see me? Stephen's smile widened as he nodded in affirmation. Yes, Gloria, I can see you, he replied calmly, his gaze steady and unwavering. Gloria's eyes filled with tears as the weight of her deception finally crashed down on her. She fell to her knees, begging for forgiveness and blaming her actions on the influence of the devil. But Stephen's heart remained unmoved by her pleas. With a heavy sigh, he told her that it was too late for apologies and that he could no longer live under the same roof with someone of her character. As time passed, Stephen and Gloria's marriage was dissolved, and Gloria was left to pick up the piece of her shattered life and move on. Meanwhile, back at Stephen's house, he found himself professing his love for Florence, unable to imagine his life without her by his side. Florence, hesitant at first, eventually accepted Stephen's proposal, realizing that her love for him ran deeper than she had ever imagined. As they exchanged vows and embarked on a new journey together, Stephen and Florence's love only grew stronger with each passing day. With Florence's newfound job and Stephen's unwavering support, they faced life challenges head on, secure in the knowledge that they had each other. Looking back on the trials and tribulations they had endured, Stephen smiled, grateful for the blessing of finding true love at last. And as they embraced their happily ever after, their story came to a beautiful conclusion, filled with hope, love, and the promise of a bright future together. The story of Stephen's search for love teaches us many important lessons. One lesson is about honesty and trust. It's important to be truthful with the people we care about and to trust them too. Stephen's wife, Gloria, and her friend Silas were not honest with him, and it caused a lot of hurt. Another lesson is about true love. True love is not about money or material things. It's about caring for each other, being kind, and standing by each other no matter what happens. Stephen found true love with Florence because she was kind, caring, and stood by him when he needed her most. The story also shows the importance of resilience. Even when things are tough, we should never give up hope. Stephen faced many challenges in his search for love, but he never gave up. He kept going until he found happiness with Florence. Lastly, the story teaches us to be careful who we trust. Not everyone has good intentions, and it's important to pay attention to how people treat us and to listen to our instincts. Overall, the story of Stephen's search for love reminds us to be honest, to cherish true love, to never give up hope, and to be conscious about who we trust. Thanks for watching this amazing story about Stephen and Gloria on African Stories. If you liked it and felt inspired with their journey, please show your support by clicking the like button, sharing with your friends, and leaving a comment below. To see more interesting stories and learn about different cultures, subscribe to African Stories, and don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Your support means a lot and helps us bring more stories to you. Until we meet again, stay connected, stay inspired, and keep smiling.